Aloha Aina, and welcome to Voices of Truth One-on-One with Hawaii's Future, brought to you by the Koani Foundation. I'm Ehuke Kahu Cardwell, and here we are today in Kapolei on the island of Oahu. And I will tell you this right now, we have an amazing guest on our show, so let's go on over here and meet her. Mikaʻala, how are you? Mikaʻala Lidstone, did I say your name right?
You did.
Okay, now I told our viewers we're in Kapolei, but we're at a very special place within Kapolei, yes?
We're at uokapolei. So this entire city gets its name, Kapolei, from this hill. Pu'u means hill, and Kapolei Hill is where we're at today.
Wow, so what's special about this place?
Oh, there's so many things that are special. When James Campbell Company decided to get out of sugarcane and convert their lands to a new city, they needed a name for the new city. And so they went to the University of Hawaii and they contracted Rubalite Johnson, who's a professor there, and they asked her to study this area, the Ahupua'a of Honouliuli, and help them come up with a name for this new city. And she discovered in her research that the most special and sacred place in this entire Ahupua'a is this hill here, uokapolei. And so she went to James Campbell Company and she said, I suggest that you call this new city Kapolei. And there's several reasons. And are you ready for them?
Sure.
So one of the reasons is this was a landmark for travelers. So travelers coming from the east going to the west would look to uokapolei as a marker to let them know that they're on the right path. So it was a landmark for travelers. This is also a place of governance and leadership. Kamaunua Niho lived here. She was Kamapua's grandmother, and she's konohiki of this area. Konohiki is a land manager, and so people lived here. And
you're talking about in ancient times, yes?
Yes, yes.
So what era would that be?
That's a good question. That was many years ago. I'm not sure.
A couple of centuries at least.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
And so Kamaunua Niho lived here. Remnants of her home still exist in the upper part of the hill on the eastern side. Also the largest heiau in all of Honouliuli. Honouliuli is the name of this ahupua'a. The largest heiau existed here at this hill. So this was a place where ceremony happened.
So religious ceremony.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And then this was also a place of solar observation. And so
solar observation.
Yeah. This is where our kupuna would honor and celebrate the sun. And we are here on a breezy day. So you are not getting the full experience of Kapolei.
You know what? I might if we walked out there, because I see we can walk out there and start to get the full effect. So can we do that?
Yeah,
let's
go.
Let's go.
Every year on the summer solstice, which occurs in June, about June 21st, the sun will set into that hill right there.
Right there, right in front of us. Wow.
And so that hill is pu'upalailai. So remember, pu'u means hill. Pu'u, because our hills in this moku, or this district of Ewa, we have so many hills, and our hills are special, and our hills, they line up to phenomena that occur within our environment. And in this case, this hill, uokapolei, is where Kupuna would stand, and they would observe on the summer solstice every year. The sun will set smack dab in the middle of pu'upalailai, and it will look like pu'upalailai is swallowing the sun.
Wow.
It is the most beautiful sight to see.
So Mikaʻala, what you're talking about is they were old-time astronomers. This is astronomy you're talking about, yes? And they use that for many different purposes, and not only for figuring out exactly where they were on the planet, but also, and within Hawaii, but also for agriculture, for knowing when the seasons were coming along, stuff like that. Yeah. And
This is honoring and celebrating the movement of energies. That's the summer solstice is the movement of energies as we get into the hot season, we get into the summer season. And on the summer solstice, that is the most north the sun will set. And the most north the sun will set is right there in the middle of pu'upalailai. And then after the solstice, it's going to start traveling south again. I moved out here when I was hired at Kapolei High School as a high school teacher. And when I learned the history of this hill, it was in 2006. And I was really flabbergasted, because the extent of my knowledge of the history of this area was really sugarcane and Pearl Harbor. And that is the history I knew of this area of Ewa. And it wasn't until I came to this hill that I learned that the history is much deeper, and there's elements to this place that's really inspiring. This hula mound was just built, and it was built and erected by the Kapolei Hawaiian Civic Club, along with practitioners like Uncle John Ka'imikawa and Auntie Olga Kalama. And the vision with this hula pa was that uokapolei would be a place where cultural practices would live and thrive. The name Kapolei of this city comes from the history of this area, and so honoring the history, honoring what makes us unique, honoring the dance and the oral traditions and our Native Hawaiian practices is what this would represent. And it was at that point that I realized that the mana and the real power of the west side is during those sunset hours. You know, I grew up on the east side. I grew up where the sun rises, and we wake up early and we draw our energy from that rising sun. But here, living on the west side, it's really the setting sun where we draw our energy, where we look for ho'ailona and signs within our environment. And that's when I realized that, you know, these energies and this movement, it's a whole different type of learning that I'll need to learn now that I live on this side of the island. We are in a public green space where, you know, this was converted into Kapolei Regional Park in the 1990s when, you know, the city started to develop this area. And being a public green park, anyone can come here. And so we have one halau that practices here, but we really want many to come and practice, because the more lawful sort of activity we have in public green spaces, the more it will be cared for. The plants here, many of the trees were grown in 2000 or planted in 2006 by the Kapolei Hawaiian Civic Club, by volunteers throughout this community who have come. And the vision was that these plants that are here would be for practitioners to come and gather. Whenever we see practitioners coming here and gathering, we know that the vision is coming to life for this place.
Yes. What does Kapolei mean? What's the meaning of Kapolei?
Kapolei means beloved kapo. So beloved kapo. Kapo is short for Kapo Ula Kina'u. And Kapo Ula Kina'u was one of Pele's older sisters. And her kinolau, or her plant form, is right here.
Really?
Yeah, it's the hala tree.
This one right here?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that's why when you come to uokapolei, that's one of the first things that people see are these majestic hala trees.
Wow.
Yeah, and we love them because they provide shade, but we love them also because they represent Kapo Ula Kina'u. And so this is her place, and I'm always mindful of that. And many, because I work with children, if you ask them, not one of them will know who Kapo Ula Kina'u is. They'll know who Pele is. Many of them will know who Hi'iaka is if you're a hula dancer, because Hi'iaka, right. And many of them will know who Namaka is, but Kapo Ula Kina'u we don't really learn about. And that's because, you know, Pele is her energy is the lava, it's the fire, and Namaka, her energy is the ocean and the currents, and Hi'iaka, her energy is the ferns and new growth. And that's so beautiful to talk with children about. Mm-hmm. But Kapo Ula Kina'u, she's the darkness, and she's the uncertainty. And hala means to pass away. Mm-hmm. But darkness and uncertainty, you know, in a Western sense, we're taught as children to be afraid of the dark. Mm-hmm. Or we're conditioned as children to be afraid of the dark. But in the Hawaiian sense of thought, there's nothing scary about the dark. We come from the darkness. Our mothers give birth from the darkness.
And we return to the darkness.
And we return to the darkness.
To the pole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And times of darkness are often our greatest teacher. Mm-hmm. And so those times in our life, that energy in the universe is an energy to embrace and understand and make a connection with, not something to be afraid of, or you'll never be able to deal with the challenges that you have in life. You'll never be able to deal with those types of uncertainty. And so Kapo Ula Kina'u reminds us of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Lessons all around us.
All around us.
All around us. My goodness.
And so we love these trees. We sing to them. We try to take really good care of them. And it's a challenge though, as I mentioned before, in a public green space, because we don't have the best soil and the so trying to keep the nutrients here and really troubleshooting ways of keeping people who visit this area from climbing the trees, because once they start to fall, it becomes uneven and the whole tree falls.
Yes, unstable. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we try to do our best to educate those who come here and make them aware that these are really special trees, and they're here to inspire us, and they're here to teach us, and they're here to provide shade for us, but so that we can listen to the environment around us. And
yes, and Mika, correct me if I'm wrong, but the leaves of this tree are used for weaving, yes?
yeah, they're used for weaving.
So they're leaves like this. Now this one's curled up.
Yeah.
But of course, once it's laid out flat.
Yep, so you would clean this, you would take it and you would clean it. And there are some leaves that are better than others. Oh, this one has some ants in it.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, so you would, bring it out
Probably
here.
Probably steam it open, something like that?
Yep, and then you would take out this bone part here and really soften it. So it takes quite a bit of work, this one leaf.
Preparatory work.
Yeah. To get it really soft enough to be able to weave with.
Yes.
But once you do, man, you can make some really beautiful things, like my bracelet that I'm wearing. This is all from these trees here.
Your bracelets are from these trees.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you can also make hats.
Yeah.
You can make, the other thing that's important is mats.
Yeah.
Mat for the floor. Those large mats you go into Hawaiians' home and you see them on the floor in the living room and in the dining room and places like that. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
What other plants are here in the park that represent things like that?
Yeah, so we have woke. We planted woke during the pandemic. We love to be creative with the leaves and make little things. As we love to put paper on them and kind of sketch to see the pattern. But we grew this because we want teachers to be able to come to gather whenever they would like. And there's no other public place that has woke here in this area.
Tell our viewers what woke is primarily used for.
Yeah, primarily used for kapa.
And kapa is?
Kapa is, you can use it as cloth. So you would take the bark and pound it out.
Right, so we're talking about taking this part of the tree, the trunk of the tree, and usually it's thicker than this.
Yep, it's usually,
Yeah, so what you have to do is take this part of the tree, take the bark off, and then some pounding occurs, yes?
Yep.
Tell us about that.
A lot of pounding occurs.
A lot of pounding, yes. You can hear it quite a ways away.
Yeah, days and days of pounding, hours and hours. So so you would pound it out, and then it's gonna, as you pound out the bark, it's going to get bigger and bigger and wider.
But also softer and softer.
And softer, yeah.
And you're getting it down to a level where it's almost like silky paper is where you want to end up, yes?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, right. And so you do that with water and also with the implement.
Yep, with your hohoa.
Yep. And you pound it on this thing you put it on.
Yep.
And you get it that way, and then once you get it that way, you leave it to dry, yes?
Yep.
Yeah. And then what do you do with it?
And then with your kapa, you dry it out. After it's dry, you'll crunch it up, or you can use ili. Ili are stones to soften it. And then once you get it to a really soft texture, then you can print on it. You can print different patterns.
Like block printing and whatnot. Yes. And some of them come out extraordinarily beautiful.
Yep.
And also the texture of it when they get done, it feels like you're touching silk.
Yeah.
So where does that fabric end up? What are the uses for that fabric in the culture? Tell us.
So some of our students who do kapa have used it for their kupuna, for ashes.
To hold them, the ashes of their loved ones that are deceased.
Yep.
What else?
And others, we've put them in frames, and we've framed them and put them up. People still use it for clothing, especially in ceremonial, especially in ceremony purposes and hula purposes.
Hula also, yes.
So malo, pa'u, you can use it for that as well. During the pandemic, we did a lot of kapa. We pounded a lot of kapa with Delani Tanahi, who is our instructor, and it's because we had a lot of time on our hands. But what the pandemic did, or that time did, was it created a love for kapa amongst our children. I mean, who would have thought that children would just, you know, that that action of pounding this kapa for hours and hours on end would be soothing for them.
Yes, but you know, Mikaala, when you hear that sound of kapa being pounded, there's no other sound like it, first of all. But secondly, for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people, it takes you right back to what it must have sounded like before the Westerners got here. Because that's what you would hear during the day or maybe late at night. And you could hear it, a very simple sound, but it traveled far. And you could, there's like an emotional aspect to hearing that sound.
There is. And it sort of embraces you, that sound. It you know, embraces your whole being, and you think, wow, hearing that sound brings us closer to our kupuna, because it's a sound that they heard too.
That they heard too, that they made, and that they heard their kupuna make. So it goes back generation to generation to generation, all the way back to the beginning. Mikaala, you were saying that you involve your students at the school in making kapa, yes?
Yes.
Okay, do you bring the students at your school here to show them this?
Yes. We come here once a week, sometimes more than that. But we come every Wednesday because we run an after-school program. So they finish school early, so we can spend a lot more time here. When
students first come here, the first time here, what's their reaction?
Well, when students first start coming here, they want to run. They want to run because it's like there's, you know, you can run in between the garden, you can run on the sidewalk. But really, these trees, the lohala, that's the first thing that anyone notices. And really, the first thing they do is go under the lohala because it's so shady. And we're always loving the shade here. And then they like to run throughout. But the plants is really what draws them in. Generally, every student we've brought here has formed a connection with one or more plants, and so they'll go straight to that plant. And
that particular specific plant, yes?
Yeah.
Wow. And
they'll take out any invasives around that plant. If we have water, they'll water it. Some of them will talk to their plants, and some will sing. But those that have been coming here quite often have a particular place they like to go, and that's really important because this is their place. This is everyone's place, and this is a place for you to come and to just connect. You know, connect with the hill, connect with the plants that are here, and connect with any other element that you feel you need in your life at that moment.
Wow. So what kind of shift occurs in them when you start to tell them the history of this place and about the history of these plants and what they're used for and the significance of them?
Well, many times I'll start the discussion of where we're going at our learning center before we come here. And then we come here and there's trash. And so some of them get really frustrated because they just heard a story about how special this place is, and they come and there's trash all over, and it you know, they feel a sort of pain. And we get over that because we're not here to harbor any of that. We're here to care for this place. And so we go through those motions. When I first came to Kapolei, I was a high school teacher at Kapolei High School, and we had families moving to this area who lived elsewhere. So many of my students, actually, when I first started, all of my students were born somewhere else and moved to Kapolei. So it was just a place where they moved to. There, you know, there was no kinship.
At least yet.
Yes. I knew that, but they didn't. And I thought to myself, what if they knew? What if they knew how special this place is? What if they came here? What if, you know, they realized that you are growing up in a really special place? what does that do to a youth, you know? Well, that gives them pride. You know, children and youth who care for their community, they're going to want to solve the problems for that community. They're going to want to give back to it. They're going to want to care for it. So you're going to see less crime. You're going to see more healthier behaviors. And that's really, really powerful. And place can do that. You know, the power of place is what drives us. And the power of this place really inspires us on a daily basis in what we do with Uluwa'e Learning Center. This one year, we came and we planted like 40 plants. Someone donated a bunch of plants, so we planted about 40 different plants. There were la'i, tea leaf, we had ilima, and we came back maybe a week later, and all 40 of those plants were stolen.
Wow.
Every single one. And they were so heartbroken because, you know, when in planting it, they really put a lot of care into it and had so much hope for it, and to see it just taken. And so they came up with an idea, and this was what they also did, was put a sign, you know, that said what the plant was.
Yes.
And so they thought, man, maybe we shouldn't have put the sign. And they said, you know what? This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna put a sign on all the invasive plants, and maybe the thieves will come and steal the invasive plants instead of the native ones.
Free gardening.
Yes, but I thought that was, you know, that was so innovative coming from children. It makes you think that they're trying at such a young age to solve some of these daily, you know, problems that we have within our public green spaces.
Yeah. Mikaela, how many children do you take out here in a school year?
Well, last year we worked with about 380 students.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And those are just our students. We also have work days. So we have once a month work days with the community. Sometimes we come here more than once a month, if we have a bunch of community members who come. But we have
people of any age.
Yeah.
Individuals come.
Yep.
Parents bring their families.
Yep.
Like that.
Yeah.
Wow. And what do they do when they're here?
When they're here, we care for the garden. So we really just care for this place, and we go through the same motions. We clear out debris, we clear out invasives, we water plants. When plants die or trees die, we seed new plants. And that happens quite a bit because we have a coconut rhinoceros beetle problem here. So one of our puhala just fell because of coconut rhinoceros beetles. So we're also checking the mulch, we're checking for larvae. So we're looking for any kind of evidence of coconut rhinoceros beetle here. So we come here and we come as caretakers, but we also kind of come as scientists too. We're kind of exploring and examining the soil, the mulch, and those sorts of things when we come.
And the kids are doing their part in that, yes?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, because you know, they're going to be the ones who care for it, this place.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Mikaela, do you have any sense, or has anybody discovered what this place might have looked like before Western contact, when the ancient Hawaiians were right here?
That is something I think about often. What did it look like?
Yes.
And also the heiau, because the heiau is no longer there.
Yes.
The heiau was destroyed in about 1920 when repairs were being done to Farrington Highway. And if you're at Farrington Highway and you look up, you can see uokapolei. So they must have saw a massive heiau and thought, wow, those rocks would be perfect for the road. And so a rock crusher came in and crushed up all those rocks. But some of the pohaku from the heiau are at Pu'upalailai.
Really?
Yes, some of them were
large boulders and stones
from the heiau, and they're massive and they're huge, and it makes me think that the heiau was just incredibly spectacular.
Yeah, you could see it from a far distance.
Yes. And so I often wonder that, and I often wonder what the homes look like here, because people lived here. And Kamaunua Niho lived here, and she, Hi'iaka came and she traveled through this place. But when she came, it was dry, like it often is, But she came here because it's uokapolei, this, and I often wondered, what it looked like, and I often wondered, how food was grown here, and these are things that I think about often. We've never done any sort of drawing on it or anything, but it's always in my mind, and it's
This has been wonderful, Mikaʻala. Thank you for taking the time to explain this to us today, to show us, give us the grand tour. And it's just, there's something about this. I don't know if the camera can pick it up or not, and the people at home watching us can feel it like I do, and I'm sure like you do, but it's just very, very, very special. You can feel what occurred here before, and you can also feel the potential of what can happen here again in the future.
Thank you. I'm so glad you feel that. And everyone who comes here, I also hope they feel that and they come back without us here, because it, as I mentioned, it is a public space. Anyone can come here and anyone can feel this and imagine the possibilities for this special place.
You got to come here and do this, because if you don't, you're really missing something. Yeah. So Mikaʻala, mahalo for being on Voices of Truth. You can't stop. You got to keep doing what you're doing. Keep bringing the kids here. Keep training future generations to keep this place going.
I will. I guarantee you I will.
Good. So mahalo to you. Mahalo to our viewers for joining Mikaʻala and me here today. Remember, you can watch us on the web 24/7 on voicesoftruthtv.com, and you can like Voices of Truth One-on-One with Hawaii's Future on Facebook. I'm Ahuke Kahu Cardwell for the Kiwani Foundation, along with Mikaʻala here. And until next time, ahui ho!
Free Hawaii Broadcasting Network.